Hey there, my friend. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Mother Project podcast. And boy, do we have an amazing conversation for you today, because I am joined by one of our very own Fit Mother Project members, Angie Grulich. She's 41 years young. She is a mother to two amazing kids, a proud wife, and she used our Fit Mother program to completely transform her lifestyle. On the scale, Angie lost 54 pounds. But more importantly, she created such powerful internal shifts that she's going to share with you how back to her childhood, she was brought up through, loving circumstances, but with a lot of negative self-talk and some limiting beliefs. And over time, she had to learn how to unwind those and regain her confidence and really just set a good example for her kids and have an integrated life. And most importantly for Angie, to really be able to have a body and health that enables her to live out God's purpose in her life. She's a very spiritual woman, and faith for her is like the bedrock of everything. So if any of this resonates with you, this conversation is going to be very powerful. And I do recommend you tune in, because Angie really just shares her heart about what she went through on the inside and the outside to make an amazing lifestyle transformation. And by the end of this conversation, I was just so filled with inspiration, love, and admiration for this amazing woman who's been on this journey. And I think you're going to feel very similarly. So buckle up. We have an amazing conversation for you today. I think you can really draw on this one to fill your heart up for more inspiration this week and to really do great with your own health routines, just like Angie's doing with hers. Without further ado, let's get into today's conversation with Fit Mother Angie. All right, Angie, welcome officially to the Fit Mother Project podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much.
And to kick things off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself to all the ladies listening, your name, your age, where you're from, and anything you'd like to share about your work and your family.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Angie Grulich. I am 41 years old. My husband and I have been married for 12 years. We have a son, Nate, who's 11, and he's very sporty and likes to follow the rules. And then we have a daughter, Lucy, who is also very sporty, and she likes to make her own rules. So we have fun kind of navigating the difference between the two of them. For work, I have a background in fundraising and social work, but I've also embraced the world of fundraising. So I'm a professional fundraiser. I work for the director. I am the director of major gifts for a religious community here in Southern Indiana. So I love my team and our donors. It's a great world.
That's beautiful. It seems like you have a really full life and certainly a lot of things to stay healthy for. But I know your story, and I have the privilege of knowing some of the background of that. And I think that's what I want to get into. And I know it's always hasn't been the case that you were fitter and healthier and on this new path. So I'd love for you to take us back a little bit to before you joined the Fit Mother program. Like, what was going on in your life and your health? Like, how'd you get to the point that you were saying to yourself, man, I should probably make some changes and find something like FMP?
So I think my story starts when I was very young. I'm the oldest of my siblings, and so I think being the oldest, my parents hovered a little bit more than they did, as you usually do with your oldest. But I also, when I was young, I was diagnosed with a lung disease and severe asthma, and it took years to figure out exactly what my triggers were. I went through all this testing, and we just could never pinpoint every single trigger. And so once we thought we had a plan, it went awry really quick. And so throughout those years, my parents were of course, very loving and proactive, but they said, don't overexert yourself. What do you need to be comfortable? And so it was lots of you can't do this, you can't do that. And it was definitely out of love and protection, because we were still trying to figure lots of things out. But then a few years later, what actually happened was, on my own, I internalized those "you can't" moments to "I can't." And so it became I can't make healthy choices for myself because I need to be comfortable. I can't run. I can't do a ton of exercise. I did do some sports, but I went to a small Catholic school, and there's not a lot of competition. So I was, easily on the team. which I love that Catholic school. Anyway, it just became like these you can'ts turned into I can'ts, and I internalized that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't doing exercise. I was just like trying to blend in with life. And that really stuck with me through high school and college, and even, a few years after college. That was really my mindset. I mean, I remember, this is like confessions with Dr. A, but I had to have like 2 packs of Pop-Tarts for supper in college, and I'd call
Yeah.
it good. And now I'm like horrified that that was my reality, and I was okay with that.
Yeah. It's amazing how like these early childhood experiences and mentalities can like create these rippling echoes that when we gain more clarity in older age and maybe even experience the pain and suffering of those seeds of those mindsets, that we start to change things. And then I know you obviously had kids, and as you get older, changing bodies. So I imagine that all kind of stacked up for you.
It did. I knew very early on. I mean, our family is very grounded, spiritually, mentally, and early on, I really knew that God was calling me to be a mother, and wife, and actually wife then mother, but regardless. And so I knew that was on my heart, and that's where I was being called to. But I kept remembering, or I kept thinking, I'm not like, well, I mean, like fast forward to when we had our first son and we took our first Christmas picture together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I looked at that picture and I thought, oh, like I'm not the mom I want to be. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I feel like I was created to be. And it was just like, God put this thing on my heart that I wanted to be a wife and a mom. And here I am, a wife and a mom, and I'm not the best at it at all. And not that you have to be the best at everything, right? But like your own personal
Yeah.
best. And I was not living even close to that potential for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that's kind of where that turning point of, previously you were talking about the I can'ts. That's where that turning point happened of maybe I can do something different that would change my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then like enter Fit Father. My husband had it first, and I think he was probably just scrolling one day and found it. Um, and then I saw the success that he was having initially, and those maybe I cans kind of kept growing. And so he gifted me with the program, just to try it for a month. I thought just 1 month, anybody can do something for 1 month. And obviously it's years later and I still live the lifestyle.
That's really amazing. And I want to dive into that shift then, because now you're at the mentality, having done this for such a long time, that you call it a lifestyle. And now you have a mentality of like, I can and I do, and these more positive affirmations. But I want to talk about the brackish water of the maybes, because I think that's where like maybe the hope and the light starts to creep into the darkness. And I think there's a lot of ladies listening to this who have an experience for many different reasons of having a stuck in a negative mindset kind of loop, these scripts of negative self-talk and thinking. And you clearly went through this transition period of getting into the maybe I can do this. And then you started taking some action, and then it really transformed you in the process of that action. So talk to me about like those early days when you're starting the program. A little hope has entered your mind. You're like, maybe I can do a little bit better. Like, what was that experience like for you? How did things change externally through your actions in your physical body, as well as like internally through your mental self-talk, your emotions, your connection to God, and all of that stuff? Like, let's dive into that a little bit more, because I think that's where a lot of the transformation happens, is in that gray area.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So so every so like I said earlier, I've always been really grounded in my faith. It's transformed over time. I've questioned many times, but it's just very much always been a defining part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so my faith has always been with me throughout this entire process. It's something that's important to my husband too. And so when I saw him trusting in the process, and trusting that the path can be okay and can in fact be good, that's when I saw like, oh, maybe I can insert myself in this moment with him too, and trust him and still trust God and still trust myself. And of course, trusting myself is the hardest thing of all. So
Mm-hmm.
um, being able to, when we embraced the program, some of the things that brought me comfort right off the bat were knowing that it's, 80% nutrition and 20% exercise. That still sticks with me. And so I'm thinking, well, I don't do any of the exercise, I'm still getting 80%. And in my day, that was a B. So I'm okay with that. That's better than anything lower. And drinking lots of water and just being intentional about what we're eating. And, for Josh and I to be on the same path, we could plan the same meals. And so, we were like, okay, well, let's just make this as simple as possible. And this is what we'll have for breakfast. And this is what we have for lunch. And then supper, we still kind of defer to that perfect plate, to help kind of guide more of a meal that could take any form, really, especially when we have, little kids running around. And I never wanted to be that mom that ate a different meal than the rest of her family. For me, that might work for other moms. But for me, that just felt like I was separating myself. And I didn't want that to happen. My heart has always been be a mom, be a family, be a wife. And that's all like be one unit. And I didn't want to have to separate myself from that. So the fact that we were able to do this program, embrace this lifestyle and still be able to be one with our family, our little kids, extended family, we do lots of family gatherings. That was really important. So, after embracing some of those initial changes, I think I looked at my mission statement recently, and I wrote down some of the key words in it. I didn't lose 10 pounds that first month. That was my goal, and I didn't do it. But it was still such a positive experience that I thought I can keep going. And so I did, eventually notice my clothes are a little looser, and you kind of happily brag about that. And, oh, I probably need to go shopping. So those like external differences were definitely happening. My face thinned out a lot more. And, but then like internally too, my husband and I were growing closer together. I was reaffirming who God was in my life. And like he had obviously never changed. It was me that went on a different path. And so being able to realign myself in that way with him was a huge blessing in itself.
A theme that I'm hearing from you that just like honestly like warms my heart is you said this idea of like oneness and like integration. Like I think back to that first picture you had when you had your first child, and like you didn't feel congruent and aligned. You felt like there was some kind of separation between your highest potential and self and your God-given path and what you were. Then you also talked about how you wanted to be integrated more with your family, integrated more with your connection with God, integrated more with your routine with your husband. And it's like, there's this drive for wholeness that we all have. And I think the things that are sustainable are the ones that bring us closer to our own unique experience of like integration. And it's very clear because you've done this for years at this point now that like you have your rhythm of wholeness. And what's amazing too, that I find, and I'm sure this is in your experience too, is when the body gets healthier too, the mind gets healthier too. When the mind gets healthier too, and the positivity is flowing, it's so much easier to be connected to God and to source and to be, I don't know, just feeling like you are living your potential. So it's so cool how this starts to snowball into positive momentum. And then your mindset changes in the soil, this healthier soil, like in time, the mental chatter changes. And so you didn't lose 10 pounds in the first month, but you have lost 50 pounds total. So like, what was the progression to 50 pounds? So 54 to be exact, because I don't want to shortchange those four. That's really fantastic. But like, how did that come off and what phases? What amount of time, and what was the journey like of losing in those increments?
Sure. So it's been a long process for me. And I think earlier on, before I started the program, I always thought everybody had to come before me. And so I always put myself last. My needs, nutrition, exercise, mental health, spiritual health, I always came last, and thinking that would enable me to take care of other people better. But like how wrong I was, because now that I'm able to take care of myself, I'm able to better take care of other people. And so with that change in my mindset, like it's definitely been a journey. It's been probably about 3 years since I've joined with Fit Mother. And once I hit some momentum, probably within, that third, fourth month, and really embraced the, I learned how to spell Apex 10. I learned how to do it. It was just like, embrace it, Angie. You're going to be fine. You're not going to break. And that was a literal mental hurdle for me of like, I'm not going to break if I challenge myself. And, with my childhood, that was the fear. So being able to really break through some of those barriers was huge for me. But really, so we started and we saw some changes, and then that momentum built up, and it's just been a lifestyle. So I can't really like pinpoint different, like on a timeline of, when I started losing more or when I was doing less or hitting a plateau. Because it's who we are now. We live and breathe Fit Mother, Fit Father. And it doesn't mean like we don't still have cake, or like my, favorite snack is a good pastry. The bougier, the better. I'm all about it. My daughter has a birthday party later, and I'm going to have a piece of cake with her.
Yeah.
But before Fit Mother, I might've had 2 pieces and like one on the way to bed. So,
Yeah.
now, we've really learned boundaries and what helps our body. Food's not a comfort. It should be a fuel for
Yeah.
living a strong life. And so, um, for us to be able to embrace that moment, and then for us to be able to teach our kids that as well, is really important to us. I know the first time I purged our pantry and put healthy snacks in there, the kids were like, and now they're all good. But it's definitely been a process. But like I said earlier, it's this lifestyle we just live and breathe now.
That's so cool to hear. And I mean, it is good to also hear too that like when you're making changes that affect your kids and their habits and routines with the stuff they're used to, like there's obviously a transition period. There's a little bit of turbulence, but you can achieve now like smoother flight after that. I'm curious, like what's it been like in your experience, like seeing your kids watch you and your husband go through this process? Like, have they said anything? Have they noticed anything? Have you noticed anything in their kind of changes? And you're kind of shifting the culture of your family in a little bit in like a pretty profound way, like how you guys generally eat and what you prioritize in terms of health. Like, can you speak into how it's impacted your family, or maybe even like kind of results that your husband's seen?
Sure. And it's impacted our family 100%. I don't feel like I was empowered in life for my own health, to be proactive with that until recently, honestly, very recently. And I don't want that same reality for my kids. I want them to know they can be proactive now. They can be their own advocate. They can make good choices. And I want them to feel empowered to know that like chips and pretzels aren't the best snack. You go through this time where you're like, a pretzel is a healthy snack. Well, it's not terrible, but
Yeah.
is there something better that you could have? Or I just, I want our family to be healthy so we can do what we were created to do, whatever that is, whatever God calls us to. I want us to be able to do our part of the deal and be as strong as we can so we can serve him in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
But like, so whenever we do the Apex 10 or other strength exercises, I'll call our kids, I'll say, all right, coach, like, let's go. And they'll do it with us, or they'll be like, Mom, you're not doing that right, or Mom, put your butt down, or whatever. And so there are coaches in that moment. They also know that if I drop them off at a sport practice, that I'm going to the gym, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do as fast as I can so I can get back and pick them up. So, if they're working their bodies and doing that moment, I am too. And Josh is too. So we all see each other going through this together, and it makes a huge impact. Just it's not just about what you eat, or making good food choices all the time, because you're still human, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still gonna have cake. If there's a beautiful pastry, I'm gonna have a bite. I'm gonna eat some of
Yeah.
it. But really, it's just balance. And so the kids see it. Of course, they've embraced it. We all have one meal. I don't make I don't make any meals. Actually, my husband cooks for me. So I know I'm super blessed, but we don't have like three options. Like you eat what we eat. And so we try to make that as doable for the kids as possible. But really the thing that warms our heart the most is whenever Lucy will say, hey, I'll go run with you, Mom. Or, whether she's just craving some mom time, but it's what a healthy way to like hang out together.
Totally.
And to have your kids hollering at you, like, or counting down, like you have 10 more seconds. And so it's a fun moment for them. And I want it to be natural for them.
Yeah.
So they, can build on it as they get older.
Well, natural is fun, right? And especially the idea of them coaching you, I think is absolutely brilliant. And like, they're probably so engaged in doing that. And they're going to want to see you push themselves, and they're going to want to push themselves more. And the foundation now that they're getting at this age with the knowledge that you have, and that's laying down their substratum of beliefs now, that they're not coming to where you came from with, the idea of having to go from you can't to I can't to maybe to I can. They're just kind of starting off with like, we can, mom can, and I can. And like, what's the impact of that? I don't know. That maybe is the point of raising kids, and every generation getting a little bit better. I think you're giving them such a gift, and like, congratulations to you and your family for that. I think it's so, so beautiful.
It's such a huge blessing. My daughter is a brown belt in Taekwondo, and like I said,
awesome.
she just turned 10. Yeah. So it's like, I've embraced this like you can moment in my own life. And it is just like bled into every part of my life with all of my relationships that are, closest to my heart. So
let's talk about energy and vitality a little bit, because I think but many things you've said is that you feel that you are called here to live out God's purpose for your life. And purpose, it kind of implies to me like meaningful action that is like put on your heart to do something. To be a mom, certainly. And I know you have a lot of other purposes in your life with your church, with your fundraising, with being a great wife, all of that. How has your energy and sense of like liveliness changed? And I'm not going to date you. You're in your 40s now. This is a time when a lot of women feel like they're like starting to have the changes, maybe like over the hill, no longer in the 30s. Things are a little downhill from here. How has your energy changed in the short amount of time that you've been following this new lifestyle, if at all?
Oh, it totally has changed. And I mean, it's increased. There's no doubt about it. I haven't hit a slowing down mark yet. I feel like the healthier I got, the more energy I had. And of course, that's not like a lightning bolt moment for anybody, right? Like, that the healthier you are, the more energy you should have. But I mean, other than just being able to say like, yes, I have more energy now than ever. It's just plain true. We talked a little bit before this about I've started running, and so I'm in my early 40s, and I'm going to do my first mini marathon later this year, and that's insane to even say out loud. So but knowing that I can get up in the morning and I have these goals and I'm going to do these tasks, and my husband and I will text each other like, these are our goals for the day, help keep me accountable.
Wow.
And the kids of course see the energy, and I'm definitely ready for bed when it is bedtime, but being able to have a full-time job, run my house, be a good wife, be a good mom, a good Christian, a good part of my church, all of that takes so much. And I just know that if I put myself by the wayside again, I can't do all of that, and all of a sudden the purposes that I've been called to don't get fulfilled. And I know I'm happiest when I am able to be in all of those roles. That's what makes me happy. That's what gives me joy. And so if I don't have my health, you don't have anything, right? Like we all know that. But as far as energy goes, I just feel like I've never had the amount of energy that I have now.
That is so cool to hear. And as you're saying that, I'm reflecting on a couple of things that seem true to me, and I'm curious if they're true for you too. I think there's a couple different levels of energy. There's like physical energy, which is like how lethargic or like spry and limbo and energized your body feels, which obviously when you eat better, your blood sugar is more stable, you're exercising regularly, you get more of that energy. There's also like mental and spiritual energy. Mental energy might be like when you have clarity. I think in times of my life, when I reflect back, when I felt like depressed or I didn't have something to focus on, or I felt kind of like lost, it was because I didn't have a direction to like focus my attention on. It's just like kind of like blah and diffuse. And now when you share that you have like very specific goals that you even share with your husband, it's like every day you wake up with a magnifying glass that's targeting the things that you're your soul is like calling you forward to work on. And so that gives you like that mental energy. And then I guess the spiritual energy is the feeling of being on purpose to your deepest calling. And it seems like you have all these buckets now and they all feed each other. I just think it's interesting. And I think one thing that I find is, and this is where I want to get your input on, is like when you're physically not well, it often makes you a lot more reactive with your food choices. Like we eat our feelings sometimes when we're not physically well. And then that translates into worse mental energy. And then we're off track. So we feel like less spiritual energy. So like we're reactive, but now you seem so proactive. So would you be open to speaking into like any of that? I don't know if there's exactly a question or a comment there, but like this concept of these different buckets of energy and how being proactive and they all feed into each other. I know you've talked about to a certain extent, but I'd love to parse it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think just listening to you and reflecting on what you're saying, it reminds me of, the hierarchy of needs. And, when one of our kids goes off the rails, instantly I'm thinking, okay, have they eaten recently? Have they slept? What's going, like, what are their basic needs at the moment?
Yeah.
And then building from there. And I think for me, it's the same in every aspect of life. If I'm not eating well, I'm not going to be able to use my mind well. I'm not going to be able to discern. I'm not going to be able to think in a clear way that's going to be life-giving to other people. So for me, being able to know my choices are, make my choices and stand solid on those, I'm able to give so much more of myself in an authentic, life-giving way than I would be if I hadn't taken care of myself in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, like having my shake for breakfast and knowing what I'm going to, knowing all of these healthy things that I'm going to do for myself already in a day, just like removes a whole world of distraction for me. So I can embrace that healthiness and then keep going. And so my mind is clearer. I think being able to internalize all those different energies and being able to show like the kids, now they see mom reading scripture more. Like that's always been a thing for me, but then it fell off because I wasn't paying attention to it in my life anymore because it wasn't a priority. And of course, that's something very important to me, but it just fell off because I wasn't taking care of myself. And now that I am, they see my Bible out. They see the pages are crumpled a little bit. We're active in church. We don't, yeah, we go to mass every Sunday, and everyone, the kids tripping on the altar, their servers, I don't care. Like we giggle about it. Like it's okay. You don't have to be uptight and nervous about things. Like just live life. And whenever, for me, when my energy is in a spot where I can feed others, that's whenever our family functions the best. And the same is true for Josh. Whenever his energy is in the right spot, it's crazy life-giving to us. And being on the same journey with him, we're able to call each other on it and say, hey, wait a minute, like your juju's off. Like what's going on? And just like reevaluate each other.
Beautiful. And I want to say too, is something you shared is I think when a husband and a husband and wife and the spouses are on the same path, you can be like a battery where you charge each other up too. And like, seems very apparent in your life. And I think that's something worth noting. If you can get the whole family integrated, you have extra charge. It's not just like you solo, like there's a supportive environment and like that gives you more joy. Now I want to transition towards the end of this conversation to talk about your running. I think it's really amazing that you found like this new challenge to focus yourself. And like, was that something you always wanted to do? Did you always have desire to run more? Or is that something that came like a little more recently? And like, what's it been like pushing yourself and now getting to a point where you're planning on like running a mini marathon this year, which is like incredible. I mean, you fit people at a gym can't run however many miles you're planning on running, 15, 20, like whatever. Like that's crazy. Like what's it been like for you pushing your body in this way and doing something that, maybe you didn't even think was possible for you?
I never thought I would be a runner. I still don't think I am. I just kind of go out and do it and then don't tell anybody. So I think it probably has some roots whenever I was younger and I couldn't run the mile in PE class and physically or mentally at that point. And so I think for me, it's almost proving it to myself that I can run and it's okay to be proud of that. And it's still something I'm trying to be okay with. by default, I would much rather blend in life. And so living out loud is something that's a little bit difficult for me. But running has given me more confidence than I've, ever been able to embrace, because I couldn't do it for so long. And um, knowing too that it comes up against the challenge of my own health. I still have asthma. I don't have the lung disease anymore, thank goodness. But I also know how to control the asthma much better now. And it's not, it's barely a hurdle. So I always thought runners were crazy. Why would you do that to yourself? But now it's a wonderful moment for me to focus on just who I am. And I just put any kind of podcast in my ear, and it's just like Angie time, it's just like, of course I love everybody else in the world too, but this is the time where I just get to focus on myself. And if I can just zone out for an hour and a half, 2 hours, then, that's like my own happy space. And signing up for the mini marathon, I was so nervous that I made Josh push the submit button on the laptop to register because I just couldn't do it. And so that was teamwork. I filled it all out and he pushed submit for me. So very excited about doing that later this year. And I'm not a strong runner. I walk in different intervals too. There's a walk run method that I typically will follow. Hopefully we'll build into more running longer distances eventually. But right now I'm just trying to stay real balanced with it and not overdo it or hurt myself. So that's been the biggest challenge physically that I've done. And that's, that running has also been, I have this book that I'm following that has a training plan, but it talks about like being strong mentally, spiritually, and physically. And it, puts it all in a blender, and it's a great focus for the week. So, so yeah, I'm running, and can't wait to get a new pair of running shoes. I used to joke that I do the 5Ks for the shirts because I love, I love a good t-shirt. So, it's definitely been a new thing for me, but I'm really enjoying it.
Clearly you're enjoying it. You're finding joy in this, and it's also integrating. I mean, it's got to be fun to, like, as you get more into running, you get the shirts, you get the shoes, and it's like it gets more integrated, and it's fun on many different levels, and like so good. And I don't know if you run outside, but for me, like, time outside walking or running is like some of the most spiritually connected time. Like, it almost in a sense can feel like church for me, at least, like just connecting with the elements, moving my body in this natural way, breathing, clearing the mind, and just like expressing this body's ability to move and pushing through stuff. So I love that you have that. I want to ask you in our closing few minutes, like, what's some advice that you have for ladies who are starting out on their journeys? Maybe they're in a similar situation to you, that where they had, like, years of unwinding negative self-talk. And let's say they have some kids too, and they're busy. They're running around between sports and different obligations. They're still working. They have a life similar to yours. Like, what are some like great pieces of advice? And they could be like really practical stuff, like make this snack mix, or it could be like, more philosophical things as well.
Yeah, I think so the practical advice, of course, is everything. That's what gets you like your first few steps into the program and build success, right? Like, get a water bottle you're excited about, have the snacks that you're okay eating and that you can easily take with you, things like that. We have 85 water bottles in our house. I don't know why, but you pick the one on your feeling for the day, whatever makes you successful. If you can nail down a few of those things, do those things for yourself, to help give you a good jumping off point. As far as a little bit deeper advice, it's like I've mentioned before, it was always on my heart to be a wife and a mother. And I wanted to be the best wife and mother I could be. And I'm sure there are women who are listening who are in that moment. Maybe they're not married or have kids yet, or maybe they're in the thick of it already and even farther along in their journey than I am. But without a strong mom and a strong wife, the family is it's not gonna live up to its potential. And so I think you really have to believe in yourself. You really have to give yourself just a breath of confidence and a breath of effort, and know that nothing happens overnight. consistency is huge. Just being consistent and making small changes will change your life. Fit Mother, Fit Father gives such a great roadmap of how to do that. And even if you can't embrace the entire program immediately, taking those baby steps is huge. I've mentioned Josh a few times on the podcast this morning. He's my huge accountability partner. My sister and I are very close, so I will talk to her very often too. But finding one or two people that can journey with you and say, hey, like, put that third piece of cake down. It's okay. Like, if you still want it tomorrow, have a nibble. But having that accountability person is a huge thing as well, in my opinion. And then, for me, and I know everybody's different on the faith spectrum, but wherever you feel like the closest to God or to whatever, if that's what gives you joy and energy, figure out how to get that and draw energy from that, because there are things in my life that I could have never done without somebody else's help. It just wouldn't happen. That strength comes from some other place. And so knowing you can't do everything, but you can take care of yourself. Start there and reach out. I know our Facebook community is crazy, amazing, and wonderful. And I wouldn't be here if it wouldn't have been for Amy, who gave me a little extra encouragement to share a reflection on my journey. And so really know where you can go for support. All little bits of advice.
I gotta say, that was like so well said. I don't think anything else needs to be said past that. I am filled with so much appreciation, inspiration, gratitude, excitement for you and your family. Like, you are a beautiful person. You've gone through a beautiful journey. I'm so excited for all your years ahead. When you do run your mini marathon, please post about it in the group. I can't wait to celebrate you with the rest of the Fit Mother community. And Angie, I want to thank you for coming on and being willing to share your heart, to inspire us, and for being a part of our community. It means so much to me.
Thank you so much. It's changed my world. So I'm glad to do what I can.